welcome to the second episode of Piecing It Together. I'm David Rosen, your host. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening to the first episode, Annihilation. It was, great getting the first episode out there. Also the mini episode that I followed it up with. And I've been getting some good feedback so far, but I want to get more. So please make sure that you, get in touch. Send us a email by davidrosen@gmail.com, or you could just tweet at piecingpod, our Twitter for this show, or also check us out on Facebook, Piecing It Together podcast on Facebook. But definitely get in touch. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. And now we're going to do episode 2 of the show. This one is a weird one. It's a great one. It's a movie called Thoroughbreds. Thoroughbreds is a pitch black comedy from first-time director Cory Finley. It stars Anya Taylor-Joy as Lily and Olivia Cooke as Amanda, an old friend of Lily's who feels no emotion and recently killed her own horse. As this strange couple rekindles their friendship while watching old classic Hollywood movies, they eventually come up with a plan to kill Lily's emotionally abusive stepdad with the help of a totally amateur drug dealer who only sells to high school kids. He's played by Anton Yelchin in his final role. It's a weird movie, and I really loved it, and I'm really looking forward to talking about it with film critic Josh Bell. Let's jump right in. All right, so I am here with Josh Bell. You may know him as Josh Bell Hates Everything. He's the film critic. You've seen him in the Las Vegas Weekly, Film Racket. We're going to be talking about Thoroughbreds. Josh, good to have you here.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You are the second guest on this show.
I feel sort of lucky. I'm sort of honored to be the second guest.
You are a very lucky guy.
Yes.
Second guest, and we see where it goes from there.
Sure. I've got my fingers crossed.
I don't know. I don't think anybody knows, but we'll find out.
All right.
So Thoroughbreds. This was a movie that I thoroughly enjoyed. It was one of my favorite movies this year so far, actually. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I liked it too. I mean, the year obviously is still new, so it is one of my favorite movies of the year so far as well. It doesn't have a huge amount of competition.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But I liked it. I mean, I could see this maybe even being a top 10 movie at the end of the year. I liked it. I think it's a weird cycle for me because I was really looking forward to it. It's the kind of movie that I usually like a lot. When we get into the influences, I think the influences on this are the kinds of movies that I really like.
Yeah.
And I heard a lot of good things, so I had high expectations, and I went in, and it was a little slow to start, I thought, and I was a little kind of slow to get into it.
Sure.
But I got into it more and more as it went on, and then thinking back on it, I thought it was really interesting. There was a lot to chew on afterwards. So I think my assessment maybe even got a little higher as I got a little distance from it. So I definitely liked it as well.
Awesome. So, I'm going to let you go ahead first. What is a movie that you thought that this film was probably inspired by?
Well, one that I think a lot of people have mentioned, and that was, to me, probably the closest, is Peter Jackson's Heavenly Creatures.
Sure.
Which it's been a while. I think all of these things that I'm going to mention here, it's probably been a while since I saw. But
it's funny you just said that, because I literally have written down as a note a lot of these movies I haven't seen in forever.
There you go. Right. And so this is great prep work on both of our parts here. But I loved Heavenly Creatures when I saw it, and I think as far as I would imagine, it probably holds up. It's based on a true story that happened in New Zealand, I believe, Peter Jackson's native New Zealand in the 50s or 60s, I want to say. Maybe later than that.
Yeah, I think 50s, actually.
With two teenage girls who I think are a little younger than the characters in Thoroughbreds, but had this sort of intense friendship, and decided to kill the mother of one of the girls. And the difference is, of course, obviously that's based on a true story, which this is not. Yeah. And the relationship in Heavenly Creatures is more, there's a lot of more homoerotic elements to it. There's a little bit of that in Thoroughbreds, but I think that this movie goes out of its way to dial that back, to keep that all at the level of just subtext, whereas it's more present in Heavenly Creatures. And they also have a sort of what a folie à deux, where they come up with this like fantasy world that they get lost in, so they maybe don't even quite understand the real implications of actually killing a human being.
Right.
And I think in Thoroughbreds, it makes it very clear that these are rational, almost too rational
Right.
people who really do understand what it takes to kill a person and yet go through with it anyway. But the idea of this intense friendship between two teenage girls and the way they feed off of each other, once they get in their heads the idea that we're going to kill this parental figure, and it snowballs to a point where it gets sort of out of their control, that's very much in line with Heavenly Creatures. And the great performances, I mean, Melanie Linsky and Kate Winslet, I think both of them in one of their first roles
Right.
in Heavenly Creatures were both amazing and went on to great work. And I think they have a similar, chemistry of dangerousness or whatever as Olivia Cooke and Anya Taylor-Joy in Thoroughbreds. So
and hopefully Cory Finley will go on to do a new King Kong at some point. Right?
We can only hope. Yeah, this is his first film, and that wasn't Jackson's first film, right? Because he made low budget.
He did the horror movies, the zombie splatter movies,
right? But yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that it sounds like you had similar thoughts on Heavenly Creatures.
Sure, absolutely. I think that's definitely one of the first ones that I thought of, and actually just to move right into the next, I'm going to do two at the same time right now.
All right.
And that's because they are right there in the pull quote on the poster, but I certainly was thinking them, are American Psycho and Heathers.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think they do go hand in hand for these characters. We're talking about these characters who, they're just not right. And you know what I mean? And some way or another, and they both have, I think, some different forms of affliction to them, like, and from their relationship to the way they see the world, to the way that they think about the idea of killing somebody. It's certainly not normal. That's what I would say, and I think that is, a very big parallel for both of those two movies. But what do you think about those two as specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the same pull quote that you did, I think. And that was part of the reason that I was excited going into this movie. I mean, Heathers in particular is literally my favorite movie of all time.
Oh, right on.
So anything that's compared to Heathers, even if it's like, this is like Heathers but bad, I'll probably want to see.
Nice.
So I was looking forward to that. And I think with Heathers, with that comparison, I think I expected this movie to be funnier. Because Heathers, I think, personally is very funny. I mean, it's dark, but it's very funny. And Thoroughbreds, I didn't find as funny.
Sure.
Not because it had failed attempts at humor, but just it wasn't really going for that.
Right. It was definitely darker. It was more on the darker side of dark comedy. It was also like a lot of these like really long, like still shots that, there's not much specifically happening. It's more just that feeling, that dread of like not knowing what's going to happen with these two.
Right. But I do see that with Heathers, again, with the teenagers, and one of them kind of egging the other on to do more and more violent acts in order to, make things quote unquote right in this twisted moral sense that these characters have.
Sure.
And American Psycho, I really haven't seen in a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I can see that in the sense that Patrick Bateman, the main character of that, obviously is a psychopath. And that's sort of even though they never use this word, it's the medical diagnosis that you would think of for Olivia Cooke's character in this. She doesn't have any feelings.
Sociopath, but I mean, still, related.
Right. There's a similar thing. The idea of not having feelings or not being able to see other people as like human in any way. But American Psycho is much more, at least as I remember it, like over the top violent.
Yeah.
And like super satirical on the idea of, Wall Street and businessmen and all that stuff that I don't think comes up. There's nothing I would say in this movie that's satirical.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is more about just focusing in on those kind of characters, but definitely not with where it goes or anything like that.
Right. And I think they probably are kind of similar. I think maybe Patrick Bateman takes more glee in doing what he does, which I
Yeah.
guess maybe goes against the whole psychopath idea. Because he does have those emotions.
Right.
I mean, you know, the image in my mind when I think of American Psycho is Christian Bale with this like crazed smile on his face, you know, covered in blood.
Yeah, listening to 80s music. And
right. And I don't think Olivia Cooke smiles in this movie until like the final shot that she's in.
Sure.
So, spoiler alert there.
Nice. What do you have as your next one?
Oh, okay. So let's see. I also had Heathers, so we can and American Psycho.
And I had Heavenly Creatures.
Right. So let's see if I can come up with something slightly different. This is one actually I can't take my own credit for this. I believe Cory Finley may have cited. I've read somewhere that he cited Strangers on a Train, Alfred Hitchcock's film about the two strangers, two men who meet on a train and get to talking and decide to to trade murders, as they say it, to kill people in each other's lives who are causing, I believe it's, I don't know if it's, see, this is terrible. I should have at least looked up some slightly more info before this because it's been a very long time since I saw this movie. But at least one of them is killing their wife. And I think in another case, it might be someone else. But the idea of like, again, this person is causing me, you know, not even is evil or bad, but is just making my life inconvenient.
Right.
And thus, it would be better if they were killed and, you know, the two people, again, egging each other on, or, you know, the idea that one brings it up and is like, well, we couldn't possibly do this, could we?
Right.
And well, but maybe if they both have the same idea, they could possibly do it. And then, you know, getting further and further entangled in each other's lives. And there's definitely a lot of homoeroticism, you know, under the surface in Strangers on a Train. I thought that was, and just the Hitchcock element as well. I mean, I love Alfred Hitchcock, and
sure,
you know, you talk about a little about the sort of formalist elements of the direction in Thoroughbreds.
Yeah.
And Hitchcock is always extremely controlled, you know, and very formal in how he's composing shots and constructing things. And this is a movie that draws attention to how carefully composed it is.
Sure.
So I can
Absolutely.
see that as an influence as well.
Well, yeah, and I actually haven't seen that since high school, at least.
Right, yeah, it's been like, almost that long for me as well.
But that's a great lead into one of mine, though. Another director who has the like very meticulously composed shots, the Royal Tenenbaums.
Interesting.
Yeah. I just these detached, like wealthy, you know, characters, and just putting a lens on their world and like these long takes of just kind of showing them existing, you know what I mean? That was like kind of the main thing why that movie came to mind particularly. Obviously, we're not really dealing with sociopaths in Royal Tenenbaums, we're dealing with weirdos, but
right.
You know,
right.
But yeah, any thought on that?
I mean, I hadn't thought of that, and I am not a fan of Wes Anderson at all.
Yeah.
Although I've seen that movie, and I believe I've seen all of his movies.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can see that in the meticulous composition. I mean, I think Wes Anderson movies are a lot more maybe self-consciously composed in terms of production and costume design, where it draws attention to those things. And this movie is a bit more minimalist in that stuff. I mean, the big rich person's house that Anya Taylor-Joy's character lives in, I mean, often seems very empty, I think, which is probably part of the point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can see that as sort of a darker take on Wes Anderson. You know, maybe it's more like what was that SNL sketch, The Midnight Coterie of Intruders or something like that? The Wes Anderson horror movie is great. You should look that up. Where it's with Edward Norton. It's very, very well done. It's a digital short, so it's not a live sketch, and they really compose a lot of Wes Anderson-ish shots
great.
And elements to it. I think maybe if Wes Anderson made a horror movie, it might almost look like this, although I probably wouldn't like it nearly as much.
That's funny. You know, at first when I was thinking of, there was like a movie in my mind, and it turned out to be Royal Tenenbaums, but at first I was thinking, it's a Sofia Coppola movie, but I can't think of what it is. So I don't know. Then I started looking over her filmography, and there's not really one in particular that I
Right.
could think of. And so then I was like, oh wait, no, it's actually Roald Tenenbaum, Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
So there was almost a Sofia Coppola movie on my list.
Right. Well, but I could think of Sofia Coppola just in general. I mean,
Yeah.
the idea of the disaffected wealthy people who
Yeah.
are disconnected from real people's lives.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a huge theme in Somewhere and in The
Mhm.
Bling Ring and in Marie Antoinette, you
Yeah.
know, and in fact, almost in every Sofia Coppola
Exactly.
movie. So.
Yeah. It's like a general style of hers.
Right,
you know?
right.
Yeah.
So I could see that being an element. And, you know, and in the Virgin Suicides, you've got, you know, teenage girls who kind of fuel each other's mania in a way. And so...
I bet if nothing else, this was probably Sofia Coppola's favorite movie of the year this year.
That's quite possible. Yes.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
What is your next one?
Okay, so I think it's interesting because you talk about influences, and usually we think of the filmmaker's influences.
Mm-hmm.
But watching this movie, I love Anya Taylor-Joy. I think she's a fantastic actress.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so for her, I think her performance in The Witch, in a way, might influence this, where she's playing another teenage girl who's kind of trapped by her family situation, and at first seems like the sympathetic figure in the film, the one who's kind of being downtrodden or being held back or mistreated by the domineering parental figure in her life. And as the movie goes on, you realize, no, wait, she's the villain of the movie. And that transformation, I think, has a lot of echoes in the performance that she gives here in Thoroughbreds. And that if her Thoroughbreds character was offered the chance to live deliciously by Black Phillip, she would go for that right away.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm so glad we're getting a Black Phillip reference on my podcast. That's great. No, that's a really good one. That's a really great point. And actually, while we're talking about particular actors, I was going to say Anton Yelchin, his performance, in a funny way, kind of reminded me of like a sad, lame version of Jay from Jay and Silent Bob.
I could see that.
Like thrust into a real indie movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And he was great in it. I loved him.
I thought, it's obviously sad to see him, you know, in the last movie that the last movie released that he was in. But yeah, I thought it was weird to me because, I mean, not to spoil too much, but
that's okay.
Okay. Well, we see his character and we seem like he's going to be important. And then he kind of like, the big thing that he's supposed to do, he just doesn't show up for.
Right.
And then they go ahead and do it anyway. And I remember thinking like, well, what was even the point of this character? It was just kind of a red herring. And the way he comes back at the end and you realize, again, he's kind of like this dirtbag when he's introduced at first, and you think, oh, he's almost going to be the villain because he's the real criminal that these girls get involved with and end up in over their heads. But no, he's actually kind of a good guy in his own weird way.
Sure, exactly.
And by the end of the movie, you realize he's the one who has kind of a moral code and is, you know, kind of schlepping his way through life. And Anya Taylor-Joy shows up and she's become this murderous monster.
Yeah. Well, I think that's exactly the point of his character, is just to have that to level where she goes off of.
Yeah.
You know, because, but by the end of the movie, you could tell that she's not a good person at all. And to see that, this guy who was a piece of shit is actually like, he's not a terrible person. He's just, you know, messed up and caught up.
Right. I mean, not that he's a good no one in this movie is really a good person.
No, not at all. Yeah.
But, you know, he's the transformation that when he came back at that whole end sequence was, I think, like what I said, where I was like, I'm not totally on board with everything about this movie, but that to me, like, really kind of contextualized it all and made it all work for me, including the stuff with his character earlier in the movie that I thought, what is the point of this? So,
sure, absolutely.
Nice work, Anton Yelchin.
Yeah,
R.I.P.
Definitely. Yeah, R.I.P. for sure. So, I lost track. Who's next? I'll go next. I also had down here another probably obvious one, Ghost World. Having just two outsider type girls and, you know, seeing them bond and have this strange relationship between the two of them. Again, another movie I haven't seen in a long, long time.
Yeah, I haven't. That's probably, you're talking about going back to high school. That might be the last time I saw that movie. But But yeah, I can see that. I mean, obviously on a much less murderous
Sure.
tip
Absolutely.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that no one understands me, but wait, this one person does,
Yeah.
and the weirdness being amplified by finding
Yeah.
the other weird person who gets you or appears to
Yeah.
get you. Yeah.
Yeah, which I wonder. I hadn't thought of this beforehand, but I just wonder if a generation of kind of offbeat teenage girls are watching this movie, where that leads them.
I don't know. I mean, if they watch Ghost World and they go collect old records,
Exactly,
that's cool.
exactly.
If they watch
What
this
happens-
movie and decide to kill their stepfathers, I don't know.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's an odd turn.
So do you have another one?
I mean, I have a few other things, but they're all kind of tenuous.
Okay.
I mean, I wrote down Jawbreaker, which is
Okay.
one of those movies where it's like Heathers but bad.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen that movie in a very, very long time, and I remember very little about it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely another movie about teenage girls who, get on this murderous level and, discover their inner sociopath or whatever. And it's much more pitched as a comedy.
Yeah.
But I can absolutely see that being, one movie that on sort of a timeline that maybe had started with Heathers and, diverged out into a handful of things in the 90s that maybe were not as good.
Right.
I can definitely imagine Cory Finley having seen that movie, and Rose McGowan, I think, is the star of that.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I could see young Rose McGowan being, in Thoroughbreds if it had been made,
Sure.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's maybe I should watch. I know I should watch that movie, but I remember it's not a very good movie.
Right. Yeah. I don't really remember that movie that much, but yeah, that was peak Rose McGowan back then.
Right. She was definitely like kind of the queen of that stuff, and or the Doom Generation, right, which just popped into my head. But
Okay.
could see Greg Araki's early films being an influence here of the nihilism, of young people
Sure.
who don't care about anything.
Yeah.
So throw that in there too.
Okay, right on. Yeah, the only other one that I had, and this wasn't really specifically the movie itself, but it was actually more so the trailer, reminded me of Ingrid Goes West from last year. But now, of course, that would have come out after this movie premiered at Sundance last year.
Right.
So obviously it didn't, but possibly in some of the marketing of the film or whatever. But definitely, like, I think they came from similar places. Like the directors probably had some of the same inspirations going into making these movies.
Yeah, I can see that. And Ingrid Goes West is maybe a little gentler, but
Mhm.
certainly Ingrid is on that same spectrum of sociopathy
Sure.
as the characters in Thoroughbreds as well.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, okay. I will mention the end of what I have. Birdman for the
Okay.
score.
Sure. Yeah.
And I hate Birdman.
Yeah.
So I don't want to see movies influenced by Bird, but to me the score, that sort of relentless, like percussive score that puts you on edge,
Yeah.
which in Birdman I just found irritating and like counterproductive.
Right.
I thought he deployed that kind of thing very well here, where you're meant to be, on edge about what might these characters do.
Yeah.
And it was used when it was, and there were quiet moments. Whereas Birdman, I felt like it was just drumming on my skull
It
for,
was pretty much the whole
120
damn time.
minutes.
Yeah.
So, but that came to mind. And then this is not a movie, or it will be a movie, but it isn't yet.
Okay.
Slender Man.
Okay.
More the real story, which I guess there's an HBO documentary
Mhm.
called Beware the Slender Man about the two young girls.
I'm aware of Slender Man, but somehow I have like just blanked out this piece of pop culture from my mind. Like I haven't read a single thing about what Slender Man is. I just know the name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Slender Man is a creepypasta,
Uh-huh.
which I don't know if you know what those
Another
are.
thing, I see the name. I don't know what it is.
It's basically like an online ghost story.
Okay.
A kind of a short little, almost urban legendish story about this. I mean, in that case, it's Slender Man, who's like a creepy, tall, slender guy
Man.
who lives in the woods and wants to kill the kidnapped children or something. And the real case is these two, I think they were 12-year-old girls, or even maybe 11, like young girls, more like Heavenly Creatures, kind of got caught up in the fantasy world of Slender Man and decided that they needed to kill their classmate in order to be reunited with Slender Man. They would go off into the woods and become his, I don't know, partners or something like that. And
Wow.
I mean, this is a real thing. They stabbed this girl like almost to death. She survived against all odds.
Wow.
And there's a documentary about it on HBO, which that I have not seen. So, I mean, it's almost like more influenced by a real thing that happened. But then because Slender Man, independent of this thing, is just like an urban legend, you know, like any other thing that's out there that some horror filmmaker is going to capitalize on, there's a fiction film called Slender Man that has nothing to do with these girls that's coming out, I think, later this year and seems horribly misguided.
Sure.
So none of that, I mean, obviously that wouldn't influence, but I think maybe that real case of those girls, again, like Heavenly Creatures, is the kind of thing that this movie is emulating.
Interesting. Yeah, that is a very interesting one that I have not heard much about Slender Man, but it sounds like it's going to be a great movie.
Oh, yeah, I don't know about that. And even that HBO documentary got kind of mixed notices, and I never ended up seeing. But I remember I read a lot about the case when it was in the news and those girls were on trial. And one of them is, I mean, going back to Thoroughbreds, one of them at least I think has been sentenced, you know, to some sort of asylum,
right,
you know, for the criminally, and whatever the proper term is now, you know, much like Olivia Cooke ends up in this movie and, you know, may spend the rest of her life there because of what she thought about Slender Man.
And she seems perfectly okay with it.
Oh, yeah, totally. No, I'm sure it'll be great.
Cool. So yeah, if that's the end of our notes, then I just want to run down the list here of what we've come up with. And of course, in the future, we'll probably think of something else next time we watch this movie or something.
Sure.
But we got American Psycho, Heathers, Heavenly Creatures, Strangers on a Train, Ghost World, Royal Tenenbaums, Jawbreaker, The Witch, Birdman, Slender Man, Ingrid Goes West. Did I leave any out?
I don't know. Gregoraki, maybe The Doom Generation. I just randomly threw that in. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to Birdman versus Slender Man.
Yeah, right. Cool. Right on. Well, that is quite the list right there. So, just to recap, you like this movie, it sounds like.
Yeah, I did. Like I said, I think it took me a little while to get fully on board with it. But I did like it. I think it's worthy of being mentioned alongside some of those that we mentioned, you know, the ones that are good. I mean, Screw Jawbreaker.
Yeah.
And Birdman for that matter.
Poor Birdman.
But, you know, movies like Heathers and American Psycho and Heavenly Creatures that are all really, really good movies. I think this is a worthy inclusion there, and yeah, I think it could end up being, you know, one of my favorite movies of the year by the end of the year. And I'm sure this won't happen, but I'd love to see recognition for the acting or the cinematography, the writing. I mean, a lot of the aspects of this movie come, you know, awards time, which again, it's never going to happen.
The actors were all so good, even the stepdad, like everybody in it was like really, really great. And you know, it's such like a weird movie. One, like you had mentioned earlier, it's one that you just like think about afterwards, and like it doesn't leave you for quite a while after you get out the theater. And I mean that's one of the things I look for in a good movie, you know, obviously. So yeah, I mean I really like this movie too. I think certainly right now it's top of the list for me for the year. We'll see where it ends up as we get later down into the year.
Yeah, it's above Annihilation.
Yeah, definitely above Annihilation. For me, Annihilation, I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
I liked it, but you know, I don't know. I have my issues with it.
Right. Well, that's a different podcast, right?
Yeah, exactly. But right on. Well, thank you so much for doing this episode with me, and I'm hoping to have you back sometime soon.
Yeah.
And do you got anything coming up you want to plug or anything like that? Anything you're doing?
Yeah, I'm always writing things here and there. So if you follow me on social media, Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook or Signal Bleed on Twitter, you can see everything that I am writing in various places, my reviews in Film Racket, stuff in Las Vegas Weekly, and all over the internet. Go to joshbellhateseverything.com And I don't know. That's enough things, right?
I think that's a lot of good things. I think I follow all of them, but
All right, thank you.
I will make sure if I missing one or two.
All right.
All right, episode 2. We did it. Wow. That was a really fun conversation with Josh Bell. I was really glad to get him involved in this podcast. I'm really happy if you've been listening. If you have, please rate us and review us on iTunes, and share the show. Leave us some comments. We really want to know what you're thinking of the show, the format, of how it all works. Don't tell us how it sounds, because we know that we can keep getting it sounding better. So don't even bother with that. But just want to let you know that actually a little behind the scenes in podcast world. This is actually one of 2 episodes I recorded today, so you're going to get the next one a lot quicker than it took to get from episode 1 to episode 2. And I might even be recording another episode a little while from now. I'm waiting to hear back from one of my friends. And then we got 2 more I'm going to be recording next week. So yeah, no more of this almost 2 weeks between episodes stuff. We're going to have an episode a week for at least the next few weeks. And then we'll eventually probably settle into every other week, or maybe we'll stick to once a week. We'll see. We'll see what you guys think. We'll see if you want to hear these that often. But again, thank you for listening. And sorry about the last mini episode where I said that the next episode would be Tomb Raider. I lied. It's Thoroughbreds. But we're going to be recording a Tomb Raider one. It's coming up really soon. I'm going to be recording it with my friend TJ Cross, who is an award-winning composer and one of my first friends going way, way back. But I also got an episode coming up with my buddy Q from the Bird Road podcast. I got another episode coming up with Chad, and an episode coming up with my friend Will. So gonna have a lot of variety to these episodes, and gonna watch some great movies. And again, thanks for being there. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes and leave us a review. That helps so much to let us know that you are out there. And speaking of you guys being out there, I just want to make one other announcement. In the what seems like forever since that first episode came out, we have had 100 downloads. Seriously, I think that's a pretty big milestone, to be honest. I have not really started promoting the show that much yet. If I could hit 100 downloads, without really promoting it much, hey, I think, maybe we could do something that a lot of people are going to like, and that is the goal, right? So, yeah, thanks for listening. Leave us some reviews, share it, and we will talk to you soon.